Hi there. So today we're here, well, not to celebrate a wedding, but we're here to have a review about the Konica Auto SE electronic. So this is a rangefinder camera from Konica from the very late 60s, I believe 1969. It is a beautiful camera, beautifully designed, and designed by someone who really wanted to stand out by making the camera look every little bit less utilitarian as possible. Utilitarian, by utilitarian I mean without too many knobs, buttons. So this is a very pure design. It's an incredible piece of design, especially being from Japan, a country that by this time really wasn't very adventurous in design terms for their cameras, because they all tend to look the same, more or less. So the Konica Auto SE electronic, to put into perspective, is what people call the last full-size Konica. And I have the Fujica Compact Deluxe with me, and the Konica is bigger than the Fuji, as you can see. But they are about the same height. The Fuji is also a very interesting camera that we shall have a look one of these days, but not today. As the name suggests, electronic, you have guessed it right, this is an all-electronic camera. So plenty of bad news. It means that the camera needs a battery to operate. In this case, I think it's a PX21. That is a 1.35 mercury battery that no longer exists. And so this one is working with a 1.4 air zinc battery. Well, with an homemade adapter consisting of wire and a nut or something like that. Well, you know how my adapters are, very high-tech. There are other further bad news, but to start with, it is an electronic camera. And with electronic cameras comes a price, because a camera this old normally will run into trouble one of these days. The other major con is that it is full automatic, as the name implies, auto. In this case, auto, it's not only connected with a series of Konica Auto cameras, but it mentions the way that the camera is designed so that you don't have to worry about a thing. The camera takes care of exposure for you, which is a nuisance. So we have a Seiko ES shutter, electronic, that is remarkably quiet. And as you will see, it is also spot on regarding exposures. So it's capable theoretically of exposures from 1 second to 1/500th of a second. But this Konica, by some reason, or for some reason, is capable of much longer exposure times. Possibly it's this camera that is not working very well, but it really is capable of more than 1 second. So this is a bad news, completely automatic. You have a ring here. Let's start by describing the camera, where you can read auto. And here you have the guide numbers for flash. And this is the only trick that you can use, because these guide numbers correspond to apertures in the camera. So you have access to the apertures of the camera. But you only have one speed, and that's the flash sync speed, which is about 1/30th or 1/40th of a second. So if you want to play with that, just single speed, you can do that. The other way is you have access to the ASA settings, which it's here at the bottom, and it's rather limited, between 25 and 400 ASA. Anyway, this is a bit theoretical, because as you don't have any indication of the exposure, so you don't know how to compensate unless you really try the camera in different situations and see if there is a tendency to over or under exposure. Now, you have seen that we have a very nice Konica xenon lens here. For the first time, the famous 38mm 1.8 lens was presented and equipped Konica camera. It was this one. I think the lens is the same as on the Konica Auto S3, but the coating is different. People say that this design also served as the base of the Konica Pancake Xenon 41.8 for the Konica SLR system. I don't know if that's true or not. Focusing is done with this lever. It's really very smooth. The camera oozes quality and not just style. It really oozes substance. Feels like a premium product. It is really very nice. And the camera focus from 2 feet 60 centimeters up to infinity, which is remarkable for a rangefinder, and also problematic because rangefinder cameras, which are cameras that have a viewfinder here where you frame your picture, and you have a rangefinder, which is the device that helps you to focus the picture or what you are seeing, creating a ghost image that you must align with the real image, has a phenomenon known as parallax error, which is the difference between what you see in the viewfinder and what the lens actually sees, because you are not seeing through the lens like in a SLR. So the closer you get to your subject, the more dangerous of parallax error there is. Fortunately, this Konica has a very nice viewfinder, which is big, by the way, and the frame lines are automatically corrected. Still, 60 centimeters is very close for a rangefinder. And let me just say one thing before I forget. Lots of people tend to confuse rangefinder with viewfinder cameras. So a viewfinder camera is a camera that has a direct viewfinder, like this one. It is in the family of viewfinder camera, but those don't have a rangefinder, and so they have to be guessed focus. You have to guess the focusing, the distance. Rangefinder cameras, like this one, do sport a rangefinder device. And so in order to be a rangefinder, it's not just a question of having a small camera between the lens shutter and a direct viewfinder. No, you have to have a rangefinder. Believe me, lots of people make that mistake. Anyway, that said, here in the back you have a button to check the battery, and a LED lights up inside the viewfinder, and this is where the battery stays. Here, almost forgotten, is the frame counter. The bottom of the camera is really nice, completely flushed, as you see. This is the rewind crank that you either can use it like it is, or in order to put the film in, you have to raise it. And you have guessed by now that there is no advance lever. That's a good reason. There's a good reason for that, because there's this pedal here. No, you don't advance through the pedal. The pedal serves another purpose. This is a spring-driven camera, meaning that it has a spring motor that automatically advances the film for you. So the camera is really silent and is completely spoiled by the sound of the spring motor. Again. It's really a shame because the Seiko ES shutter is really very quiet. But the good thing, as you have noticed, is that there is no advance of the film until you remove your finger from the shutter button. So you can take your picture and go elsewhere in order to avoid the noise. The paddle shape is designed for you to clock up the spring motor, and here we are. It's a shame about the noise, but you can see that the camera is remarkably small for having an integrated spring motor. They were all the rage in the 60s because people thought it was all the rage. Most commonly known are the Canon with the Canon Dial 35, for instance, that also features a spring motor, but there are many other manufacturers that thought this was a good idea. Anyway, the idea became more popular with electric motors that would appear at the end of the 70s in compact cameras. So, this is the presentation of the Konica Auto SE electronic. Now, I made a few shots with it, but unfortunately I used a film that was 20 years old, and so the processing was a sort of hit and miss, and the pictures are really not very good, either aesthetically or in terms of or technically. Anyway, it's not Konica's fault, because the camera exposed very well, even with film so old, and the lens is really fantastic. It is very sharp. It's possibly one of the sharpest lenses that I can speak of, and don't forget that we have an aperture of 1.8. It is really remarkable. There are a few shots, like I was saying at the end of the video, where you can see or agree or not with me regarding the lens performance. Of course, I have no idea about the apertures, of course, because I don't have control over them, because I use the camera in full automatic mode. So I didn't went for the trick of using the guide numbers. This camera is very similar to the Minolta Imatic E, which also features this shutter, and also performed really well, and regarding exposure it was also spot on. To end this video, there are two more things that I have to speak about, but you have noticed by now. There is this collar here, which serves to lock and unlock the shutter button, and if you put it here, it acts as the self timer. So very neat. Self timer usually is in the lens barrel, but not here. Also, there is a hot shoe. Don't laugh, because Konica was a bit allergic to fitting hot shoes to cameras. Don't ask me why. And there is a PC socket here. To end this video, I will show you what's inside. The Konica is very well finished. There is a sticker here saying that we should use Sakura color film. That was the brand that Konica used when they made films before switching to Konica altogether, and the camera is really very well built. Don't worry about the film, this is a dummy film, because these cameras do not work without a film. So if ever you come across one of these, this is the first one that I ever saw. I never saw one, to be quite honest. I didn't even know that there was this model from Konica, and I bought it because I thought it was broken, and also the vendor thought it was broken. But then I read on the internet that it needed film to work, and it had a fault, but nothing to do with the winding system or the camera itself. Just a common Konica fault, which is the rangefinder mirror, becoming loose after, well, so many years. The glue stops working, but everything is now in its place and the camera focuses correctly, and it is a joy to use. These are really my this is really my experience with the Konica. Would I recommend it? Yes. It is a fantastic little, not so little, but it's a fantastic camera, not too big like the Electro 35 from Yashica. The only drawback is being completely automatic, but still, it is a magnificent piece of engineering. I really, really like it. Just to touch it and feel it, it is something that one can't forget. Now, you shall see a few pictures taken with it. Again, I remind you that about the circumstances that they were taken. So any faults, they are not Konica's faults, they are my faults regarding the processing and the fact that I used a very, very old black and white film. Thank you very much for watching, and hope to see you very soon in another video of mine.